Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. This is The Amateur, where we're here just to talk life, hobbies, politics, ideologies, what have you. And on today's episode, we're going to be talking about the Army Combat Fitness Test. I was listening to Matt Walsh. I'm not a part of the Sweet Baby gang because I don't like being in gangs. So I want to preface that. But I was listening to Matt Walsh, and one of his, I think he canceled something, or I don't know if he canceled it or if it just came up as one of his talking points, but it was noting that the Army Combat Fitness Test was no longer going to be gender neutral, and I had to respond to this because I just made a video talking about it, and I was like, yeah, the Army is going in the right direction, and they just completely 180'd, so I'm just going to go ahead, I'm just going to read, so this video will be this video will just be, it'll be another article reading video. Hopefully it won't be as long. It shouldn't be. The Army doesn't write like that, right? I don't know. Okay, but anyway, so this article is titled, "The Secretary Approves Implementation of Revised Army Combat Fitness Test," dated March 23rd, 2022, so not too long ago. We're in April now, so it's a little late. Anyway, Secretary of the Army Christine E. Wormuth. Hold on, let me pause. Oh my gosh, it all makes sense now. Freaking, she's a woman. Duh. She's not served in the military. Maybe she has. I really don't know. Christine, she's a woman. Of course, this is why she's approving of this. That sounds sexist, but it's not. Let me see her history real quick. I don't think she served in the military in any capacity, and it's telling that she would approve this. It's telling that she would approve this. But Secretary of the Army Christine E. Wormuth issued an Army directive today outlining a time-phased implementation of a revised ACFT as the Army's general physical fitness test. Changes made to the ACFT incorporate feedback from soldiers and independent analysis of test performance. Among the key changes announced by the Army are new age and gender performance norm scoring scales, the replacement of the leg tuck with the plank for the core strength assessment, and the addition of the 2.5 mile walk as an alternate aerobic event. So just to preface everything as well, the Army Physical Fitness Test, the APFT, that was a 3-event test. It was 2 miles, sit-ups, and push-ups. I don't think it was in that order, but whatever. It was also gender-based and age-based. So pretty much, I think it depended based off the charts. It's like the older that you get, you start off young, and then the older that you get, the difficulty to max out the points gets harder, but it also gets easier to not fail, if that makes any sense. Hopefully the picture that I show on the screen is actually clear, because sometimes the words are too small, but hopefully you can see that. And then after a certain age, it starts decreasing as far as, but it's easier to pass if you were at a younger age, but you're now 40 something and still serving, and so they're like, yeah man, we're not going to expect you to perform at the same level of a 26-year-old, which makes sense. It makes sense generally speaking, as far as, especially the older you go, the more the less you're on the front lines of these fights. I think they call them a chair general or something like that. I don't know. The fact that they have these people in these positions typically have to have a rear view oversight. This is what you call the CEOs. They're not the workers down in freaking Amazon that are taping boxes together. So they're not the ones that are actually down in the fight doing all the physicalness, but they're in the back controlling the decisions and everything. Something along those lines. That was the previous one. And this new test, what they were doing was it was initially meant to be a gender neutral test, a one standard for everybody, this for all of our soldiers, regardless of where you come from, what you look like, what you do, what's in between your legs, what's in between your head, whatever. This is the standard that we expect of you to complete as a soldier. I don't know why they couldn't have done that, because I'm going to finish reading this and I'm going to give my 2 cents on it. But now it's a six event, still gendered. I think it's age-based as well. And I think the other one, it was going to be, again, that one standard for everybody was going to include those who are elderly. I say elderly, 40 years old is not elderly, but that's where you start getting into your high-ranking people. I think my dad was 42 and he retired as a lieutenant colonel, I think. Don't quote me on that. But yeah, so I think okay. So anyway, so the six events are a 3 rep max deadlift, a standing power throw, hand release push-ups, sprint drag carry, plank, and a 2-mile run. Gross. Okay. And a quote saying, the ACFT is an essential part of maintaining the readiness of the Army as we transform into the Army of 2030. The revisions to the ACFT are based on data and analysis, including an independent assessment required by Congress. We will continue to assess our implementation of the test to ensure it is fair and achieves our goals of strengthening the Army's fitness culture. So I don't know how you're going to strengthen something by decreasing the limits of the strength. You know what I'm saying? Let me see. Hold on. Okay, I had to go look up the standards real quick because I didn't know what they were. Okay, so for the old APFT, for ages 17 through 21, for ages 17 to 21, so in order for the males to get a 100, the highest score, they had to run a 2-mile in 13 minutes. For a woman to get a 100, she had to be able to run the 2-mile in 15 minutes and 36 seconds. Conversely, at 15 minutes and 36 seconds, a male would be only 4 points above passing. So I think you needed a 60, like if you're talking grades, these are like grades. In order to get I think you need to get at least a 60 in all the categories to pass on the old physical fitness test. And so at 15 minutes and 36 seconds, a male was only able to get, it was just barely passing, but for a woman, she got the highest score, 100. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That's you look at the charts and it's kind of ridiculous. It's not ridiculous, it's just like the differences between men and women are obvious. Should be obvious. And then, let's see, for this ACFT, for the same age range for age 17 through 21, now, they get an extra 22 seconds. Look at that. It's slower, so the standards have been lowered. Keep that in mind. Anyway, to get 100, or for the males to get 100, they have to run 13 minutes and 22 seconds. But now, they can run, they're 60. Oh, that's kind of bad. Their 60 is now at 22 minutes to run 2 miles. That's running a mile in 11 minutes, which isn't that fast. It's not that fast. As opposed to the old standard, a 60, you still had to run for that same age group. If you wanted to get 60 points, you had to run it in 15 minutes and 54 seconds. So that's like almost quick maths.
2 + 2 is 4. -1, that's 3. Quick maths.
6 minutes. That's almost 6 whole minutes of extra time that men received under this new. So again, that is in to an extent lowering the acceptable and allowable standard of physical fitness, which is in contradiction to everything that was just said in this as far as with strengthening the Army's fitness culture by lowering the strengthening standards. It doesn't make sense to me. But keep that in your back pocket as far as with I didn't say the women's. And for a woman under the new ACFT, age 17 to 21 at least, that to max it's 15 minutes and 29 seconds, again a little bit slower, and to get at least a 60, it's 23 minutes and 22 seconds. And I think I know big in the Army is like ruck marching. This is when you have to do a walk with a big heavy pack on your back. I think for most it's you're carrying a rucksack, and it has like their basic needs of supply. It's supposed to be like 35 pounds, 45 pounds. I don't really know. It's pretty, it's heavy. There's weight to it, and I think the standard is 15 minutes in a mile that they're walking, and I think some men are able to do that in 12 minutes. So they're doing 12-mile paces a lot faster than a woman can run 2 minutes. Like, that's just insane to me. That's insane, people. It's not insane, but yo, get it together. Okay, anyway, continuing. A common concern identified by the Army's independent analysis in the RAND study was that a gender-neutral test might not accurately measure all soldiers' general physical fitness levels. One example was using the leg tuck as the assessment of core strength. And so what I will say with this is, because, I mean, it's a leg tuck is like a half pull-up, and pull-ups are just historically harder for a woman than it is for men, just to kind of train and gain. But like, plenty of women can do it if they want to. You just got to train a little bit harder. I mean, that's for anything when it comes to physical fitness. When it comes to, if you're going to be comparing men and women will have to train harder to be at the same level as men, and that's because we're different. That's how that works. This is how it works, okay? And so I think the problem was that with the leg tuck, which is like you coming up, I'll see if I can't show a video of me doing it. I think I can do it. I'm gonna try. But anyway, if not, I'll just show a clip of someone else doing it, whatever. But it's like a half pull-up, and you're tucking your knees to your elbows to touch them, and then coming back down, I think, back to a dead hang or something like that. And a lot of women weren't able to even just bend their elbows, like to lift themselves up this much to bring it in. So to an extent, I can see why. I mean, that leg tuck is an assessment of both upper body strength and a little bit of core strength. So I can see if they're just wanting to assess core strength, that also testing upper body strength might conflict. But I think they just needed to do one to pass. Just one. They didn't have to do, I think, again, the old standard used to be 20 to max it for everyone. But they just need to do one to not be considered a failure. But couldn't do even that. Not even one. Okay, and so then it says, the RAND concluded that soldiers might have the core strength that is not accurately measured if they lack the upper body strength required to perform, that's what I just said, required to perform a leg tuck. Now, the plank will be the sole exercise to assess core strength using recognized standards from sister services as a baseline and modifying the scales based on Army requirements. And so even with, I think the plank is a okay core strength measurement. Again, I'm not like a fitness guru or anything. I'm pretty weak. But I think it also measures, it's more also your shoulder strength too, for the plank. I don't know, it is what it is. It used to be the sit-ups, and sit-ups were more so your hip flexors than it was your core. Like I when I did sit-ups, I feel it more in my hip flexors than I do my core, but that's besides the point. Okay, so the Army will continue to assess performance data and has established an ACFT governance body to provide oversight of the full implementation of the new test. This structure will assess ACFT scores, pass rate, injuries, and environmental considerations, and report those findings along with recommended changes to Army senior leaders. The first comprehensive assessment will be in April 2023. Unlike the APFT, which went largely unchanged for 40 years, Army leaders believe the ACFT must be adaptable. I don't know what that means. I don't know what they mean by that. Since 2018, we've said this test would evolve, and it has, said Sergeant Major of the Army Michael Grinston. Grinston noted the governance structure will continue to advance the ACFT to maximize the physical fitness of the force. Debatable. The sixth event ACFT now provides commanders and soldiers an accurate assessment of a soldier's physical fitness level and sustains the Army's effort to maintain a physically fit force capable of a wide range of missions. Beginning April 1st, and units, that was not too long ago, units will start diagnostic testing under the new structure. Record testing begins for regular Army and active Guard reserve soldiers on October 1st, 2022 to allow soldiers 6 months to train. Also on October 1st, a passing ACFT score will be used for retention, graduation of initial military training, professional military education, and evaluation reports for regular Army and active Guard reserve soldiers. Implementation of separation actions may begin in April 2023 for regular Army and active Guard reserve soldiers. The Army also approved similar but longer timelines for Army Reserve and Army National Guard soldiers, with April 2023 marking the start point for most personnel policies and the implementation of separation actions beginning in April 2024. During this transition, we want to make sure all soldiers have the proper time to succeed. Gritson explained, but put the test on the calendar and make sure your soldiers have a solid training plan. So pretty much with here, what they're saying is that with the old PT test, if you failed it, that was, I think you needed to fail it twice. I get a lot of my information from my sister. I think you had to fail it twice because she did the old ACFT. My sister is such a boss, but she did the old ACFT and she passed it just fine. I love my sister. Anyway, but anyway, so what they're saying here is that there's at least you have to, if you fail for the old standard, if you failed that twice, that was grounds to remove you from the Army because you weren't meeting the physical requirements that were expected of you, of that soldier. And so what they're saying here is like, once they implement this new ACFT, if you fail it, because a lot of, and this is the big deal, was that a lot of women specifically were failing the new, that is now old, ACFT with the leg tucks because they couldn't do it. And so if they had kept that, they would have to separate a lot of women and would not be entering a lot of women who could, or they could only enter women who were able to meet that physical requirement that the Army was asking of them. And I don't know what that percentage is. Oh, I think the Matt Walsh show, he was saying it was like 42% of women were able to pass. So my sister is part of the 42 passing women who could meet the bare minimum requirements of that new ACFT. Which again, I have some thoughts to say towards the end, if the end comes. Grissom said, while regular Army soldiers can be flagged beginning October 1st, 2022 for failing the ACFT, no regular Army soldier will be separated solely for ACFT failure until April 2023. The policy also directed a change to extend retesting periods from 90 days under the APFT to 180 days for regular Army and active guard reserve soldiers and 240 days for reserve soldiers for the ACFT. Grinston noted that the extended reconditioning timelines will guarantee that soldiers who are willing to put in the time and training are provided an opportunity to pass the test. But this couldn't have been provided under the other standard, the gender neutral standard. Just asking. Okay, so teach throughout the force. To help inform the force of all the policies and procedures of the test, the Sergeant Major of the Army is initiating a teach throughout the force and personally gave Army Command, Army Service Component Command, and Direct Reporting Unit Command Sergeants Major a class on changes to the ACFT. They will turn around and give that class to the NCOs who report to them, as well as the Command Sergeants Majors, that's a mouthful, for their subordinate units. The teach will continue throughout the Army to ensure all non-commissioned officers and soldiers are directly informed of the policy. This is an opportunity for leaders to get engaged and understand the soldiers' questions and concerns about the test. Grissom said, know where they are struggling and develop a plan to help them succeed. Leaders need to address more than just physical training and focus on the soldiers' overall fitness. To ensure soldiers throughout the total Army have comparable training opportunities, the Army are comparable. The Army procured and distributed more than 40,000 sets of equipment, 60% of which were designated for soldiers in the Army Reserve and National Guard. Grinston encouraged leaders to use their equipment for physical readiness training, including all drill weekends for the reserve component to help soldiers familiarize themselves with events before testing. So again, I know I'm saying a lot of words. I'm just trying to I don't mean to rush. Maybe I can skip over these things in the future. But one thing I will say here, though, is again, like the Army doesn't pay for anything itself. So understand, well, maybe a little things, but understand that also a lot of the things that fund the Army are through taxpayer dollars. It's just making sure that the money's going where it needs to go. But I think when we talk budget, that's like a whole other video as far as everything wrong that our country does with it. Like everything, it's crazy. Okay, anyway, almost done. There are a number of resources available on the ACFT website to help soldiers train, including workout program examples and video of exercises, many of which require no equipment. The holistic approach. So Army leaders expect units to incorporate principles of all the holistic health and fitness system domains into their training. In addition to the physical domain, leaders should include proper nutrition, sleep, and spiritual and mental fitness to improve overall soldier readiness. Unit master fitness trainers are the subject matter experts and are trained to advise in all domains of fitness. I think that's important. I think understanding that, it's not just the physical fitness that is important. I think it's a good baseline. I think it's good to try to have that balance amongst the soldiers, especially in an environment that can be austere, that can be super violent, that can be, separated from family, separated from your normal sources of support, and that those soldiers have those things, and that it's not just be strong, be big, be fast, but also be mentally sound and, grounded. I think that's important, but I don't know. I think when you have a standard-based military, meritocracy, because that's what the military has been about, and I mean, I can go into a whole other subject of the extreme feminization of our military as it is currently, but that is going to have to be another video. But I think when it comes to physical fitness standards, and especially if you're going to permit people, again, to be in these combats, I think what it was before, the standards were different, but also women weren't permitted to serve in those combat roles, as far as they weren't infantrymen, they weren't, I don't know what they are. I really only know for infantrymen. Field artillery, they weren't, I don't know what else they were. They just weren't serving in those physically intensive roles. But so the standards were different, but they weren't serving in those physically intensive roles. And they're like, well, we can open that up to everybody. And now when you're doing that, but not changing the standard, you're lowering the standard, because the standard that you expect of women is lower than the standard you expect of men. And if those same, like, if you're not going to change that, then your fighting force is going to be lower. Like, the math needs to be math in here, people. Okay? And so it says H2F is an incredible system that looks at training in ways the Army has never done before, says Brigadier General John Klein, Commanding General of the Center for Initial Military Training, the Army's lead proponent for the H2F system. Incorporating things like mindfulness training, proper nutrition counseling, and better sleep techniques are proven methods to improve mental and physical readiness. The Army does not care about sleep. I know this because my sister has called me saying that she's not left work yet, and it's like 9 p.m. It's just like gross. And mind you, she's supposed to get off at 5 p.m. Disgusting. Okay, if you really want to improve your ACFT score, grades, and degree, start with those other 4 domains of fitness. Okay, so my main grievances here is I don't know why they still couldn't have had one singular standard. What was wrong with the singular standard? Like, again, like, just set the minimum standard of what you're willing to allow and have that be it. And, like, I think the previous one, it was based off MOS, and that might be the case where, like, I think MOS is your military occupational specialty, or something like that. But it's essentially saying, like, if you're going to be a behind the desk job worker, we're only going to expect this. We're expecting at least this of you. But if you're going to serve in this infantry environment, we're going to expect this of you. And that's that's the job that most people, I don't know how the job selection works. But the thought behind that, though, was understanding that not everyone needs to meet the minimum period overall, but the minimum goes further depending on the specialty that you're in. And again, I kind of talked about that in my other video.
Okay, so one thing that I did forget to mention as far as the concern for maintaining a separate standard for men and women, as far as understanding and recognizing the biological differences and the different efforts that it does take to reach certain levels. And so the issue is, if you might have a woman, a female who is, tactically proficient, is super smart, can do all these things, but just won't ever be as strong as her male counterpart. And as such, if you're going to have a one standard physical fitness standard, then that male will always, always, always outperform her physically rather than mentally. But I think a quasi solution would just be if it's a situation where it is something that the brains, the mental skill needs to out is like more important, is valued over the physical skill, then just again set that minimum standard of physicalness that you just have to meet, and then evaluate the merits of their of their mental prowess. So that again, I just, that was an afterthought that I realized I never mentioned in the original video.
But again, so what I still don't understand is why they couldn't have done that. Like, even granted, like, so just take, let me see what the lowest standard is of the planking. Oh geez, there are people who are 62 plus years in the Army. Child, please. Okay. So I think it would have been something where the one standard would have made it easier for those who are weak and who suck to pass, but make it harder to achieve the maximum. So those who put in the effort, those who put in the work, will get to the top, however you want to call it, or I guess sort of, for the men at least. For the men, like, again, I understand that at the max capacity, men will far surpass the physical performance of women, and that's just like, no matter how hard women try, you can try. I think the studies, like, there's like a 10% gap of peak performance between the best, strongest, fastest man and the best, strongest, fastest woman. There's always that there's a limit. There's a limit, and there's a 10% difference between that limit between both men and women. But anyway, so again, what I don't see why, so I think the lowest standard comes for those 62 plus. I don't know if there's really much of a change between those who are 62 and those who are 61. I don't really see one, just a little bit. There are, I don't know what the SPT, whatever the SPT, the standing something throw, whatever that is, it's pretty lower. But I think, again, having that long scale, having an MOS rank of how they had the old system, and if they wanted to throw the leg tuck out because they thought it wasn't a good measure of core performance, okay. But if you're going to do the plank, make that same plank standard for everyone, make that minimum standard the same for everyone, and make that heavy, or make that minimum standard the same for everyone. Like, I don't know why they could not have done that, and if someone can answer me, let me know, because that is something that I'm curious about. So still having a gender neutral, because the problem with this, and this will be the next video, is that, again, the Army has re-implemented transgenderism in the Army, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but when you have a physical fitness score that is sex-based, gender-based, like, I don't know how the Army is classifying these things right now, but when you have such things, and now you're throwing transgenderism into the mix, it's just like, how are these going to appropriately match? So I think the Army made it a boo-boo, and I'm not blaming it on the woman in charge of the Secretary of the Army, but somebody's got to take accountability somewhere. What the heck do I know? I'm just an amateur. Make sure you like, comment, share, subscribe. Definitely comment, though, please. And thanks for watching, and thanks for listening, and I will catch you in the next video.